What's up, everybody? It's Justin. That was a close one. I didn't think we were going to get here today. I'm not even kidding. I just had the most catastrophic tech issues I think I've ever had for an AMA. From like back in the early days when we had a couple times where things just didn't work out at all. It's been like that for the last 15 minutes. My computer went crazy on me. My phone went crazy on me. I went live once and deleted it. It would not let me rotate my phone the way I wanted to. You guys don't care about any of this. What's up? It's Wednesday. Welcome to Ask Me Anything, number 42. All right, all the steps we got to take. I'm going to make sure I'm live because holy crap, that was intense. Actually, hold on just one second. Okay. Phone says live. Let me check the website here. Good Lord, guys, this is crazy. Almost there, I promise. Click the share button while you're waiting for me, if it's live. I gotta see if it's live here. Let's see. My website's still loading, of course. There we go. I see myself. Pretty bright, huh? Oops. While you're waiting for mute the computer. I swear I've done this before. What's happening right now? What's up, everybody? All right, let's see. I'm live. This looks pretty good. It's a little bright, a little bit in my face. It's cool. I'll live. What's up, guys? How you doing? Welcome to Ask Me Anything, number 42. This one is called Blood Pressure, Salt, and Sex? Like I said in the live video today, if you're not in the Clovis Academy, you're missing out on the live videos. But you have to upspeak it. You have to upspeak this sex part. Okay, cool. I got notes here. This is what I did. I didn't have any notes. Everything crashed on me. It was not cool. So phone is rotated. We're all good because when it's up and down, it doesn't really work if it's in that, I don't know what you call it, portrait mode or whatever. It doesn't work the same way when I'm writing on the board. You just can't see it. I can't make it work the way that I want to. So here we are. We got the widescreen happening. We're live. There's a bunch of you here. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for waiting like 8 minutes or whatever the hell late I was. Ridiculous, guys. Late to my own AMA. So let's jump in. I don't know how I'm going to cram this one into an hour. I'm going to try really hard. So I might talk fast. If you need me to slow down, just tell me. This is Ask Me Anything, number 42. Why is this called Blood Pressure, Salt, and Sex? Because we need to talk about blood pressure, salt, and sex, and a whole bunch of other stuff, right? Because in the world of Clovis, if there's one thing that I get more pushback on, actually that's not true. The number one pushback I get is all that fat is bad for you. The number two pushback I get is all that protein is bad for you. Again, both of these things coming at the advice of doctors, not nutritionists, maybe even some nutritionists, depends on when they became nutritionists, right? And number three is sodium, salt intake. All that salt's gonna give you a heart attack. Ridiculous, and we're gonna talk about how this is ridiculous, okay? It's a really big deal. Oh yeah, Jackie, you're right, fruit's probably up there too. Yeah, fruit's kinda up there. Definitely top 4, for sure. All right, so today we're gonna talk all about salt, mostly salt. I'm also gonna talk about blood pressure. I'm also gonna talk about sex, right? Because for decades, 4+ decades, you have been sold, yet again, another lie. That salt is the culprit for high blood pressure and thus cardiovascular events or cardiovascular disease, right? So tonight, we're gonna explore all these primary claims of what we call the salt blood pressure hypothesis. I prefer to call it the salt blood pressure myth, but hey, whatever floats your boat, right? What they get right and what they get wrong. This feels a lot like the low-fat myth and a lot like the alkaline diet and a lot like all the other stuff we cover, right? We'll discuss the unfair treatment that salt has gotten over the years that's based on little to no evidence. Really, this should convince just about anyone. It's as clear-cut as it gets. And we're going to jump into all the ways in which salt can dramatically improve your life, right? We're also going to talk about the negative health consequences that we face as humans when we switch to a low-salt diet. Salt is an essential mineral. Essential meaning you die without it. Just like fat. Without fat, you die, right? So we're going to talk about sex issues. We're going to talk about birth defects. We're going to talk about childhood micronutrient deficiency via breastfeeding. And this all sounds like a lot of fun, right? It's going to be a super positive, super fun episode. So let's jump in. The other thing I'm kind of bummed about is I don't have my microphone set up because everything got so crazy and the tech was screwing up. So I have my cool little microphone over here, but it's not plugged in. So the podcast, It's going to be old school, right? I did 35, 36 plus podcasts with just the iPhone microphone. Let me know if you guys can hear me. Cool. I hope you can hear me well. But hey, we did that forever with the podcast, so I'm going to do it again. And let's jump in. Okay, for those of you that are watching that don't know who I am, if this is your first one, my name is Justin Nault. I am a certified nutritional therapist. I am a certified specialist in sports nutrition. I am a certified specialist in fitness nutrition. I am also the certified founder and CEO of Clovis. I invented a line of products called the Perfect Paleo Powder, and I transform lives. That's what I do now. Over 500 lives have been transformed in just the year 2018 alone. All sorts of weight loss, all sorts of non-scale victories, all sorts of life changes that have come from what people have learned within these Clovis groups and Clovis protocols. Go to iamclovis.com. Check out what I'm talking about, okay? So, let's jump in. I'm going to try to jump right to it because we're so far behind on this. The salt blood pressure hypothesis. This again, it's going to sound, when we talk about the food pyramid, when we talk about fat, all the nonsense associated with fat killing people, right? It's going to feel a lot like that. It's going to sound like the fat causes heart disease debate because there was never any solid scientific evidence whatsoever that proved that salt caused chronic high blood pressure. Remember that word chronic because it's important, okay? In fact, quite the opposite. And we're going to get into all of that. But first, the basic argument. It's very simple. It's understandable why people think this way, okay? So eating higher levels of salt leads to higher levels of blood pressure. The idea being, when we consume salt, we get thirsty. We tend to drink more water. Now this is natural, okay? It's the body's way of diluting the salt in the blood. It's very important because if you take sodium, right? Sodium chloride with table salt, right? Or if you take water, H2O, both of them without the other can kill you, okay? If you were to ingest straight sodium chloride completely by itself without water, it would kill you. If you were to ingest a whole bunch of water, pure water, without sodium chloride, without salt, it will kill you, okay? In fact, salt regulates the hydration levels in the body even more so than water does. So I want to explain this to you, right? If you hear stories of like heat stroke, sunstroke, people running a marathon and dropping dead of dehydration, right? It's not a water issue. So most of the time, if you hear a story of somebody dying from dehydration, they're actually dying of electrolyte depletion. So if you had somebody that ran a 100-mile marathon in the desert and they came to you like, I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die, the worst thing you can do is give them a bunch of pure water. It will probably kill them. If you just gave them a big-ass pitcher of water and they drank 2 pitchers of water by themselves in that dehydrated state, that can be deadly, okay? You don't wanna give a dehydrated individual copious amounts of water without electrolytes. So it's also why you ever hear that we're not meant to drink, copious amounts of distilled water, right? Distilled water in super high doses can literally kill you, all right? But anyway, I'm ranting. Sorry, my brain is frazzled, everybody. So let's get back to the hypothesis. So we eat salt, we get thirsty, we drink more water. This causes the body to hold on to that water to dilute the salt. In theory, this would increase blood volume, which would increase blood pressure. Very simple, right? Very, very simple. Too simple because it doesn't tell the whole story. And it doesn't answer the question, does salt intake cause chronic high blood pressure? Okay? So in the episode Bad Science, we talk about this. My episode Bad Science. This has bad science written all over it. Because as we know, correlation and causation. Causation versus correlation. Correlation does not prove causation, right? So if you look at this, it's actually unfair to say that because salt might lead to high blood pressure, and high blood pressure might correlate with cardiovascular disease, therefore salt intake causes cardiovascular disease. There's a giant gap there, everybody. You can't do that. That is bad science, okay? So how did we get here? We got here with a history of bad science, very similar to this low-fat situation, right? Just like low-fat, we're going back even further, okay? The salt blood pressure myth started in 1904, back when we knew everything about the human body, totally makes sense to be giving medical nutritional advice based on evidence from poorly designed studies in 1904. Makes a lot of sense, right? And again, extremely flawed studies. So let me give you perspective on this. For the average person, if you guys have been in Clovis for any period of time, I love salt. I drink water full of Redmond Sea Salt, and we're going to get there and talk about it, right? I recommend, highly dependent on the person, but I recommend 3 to 7 grams of sodium per day, okay? That's what I want you to get. Somewhere between 3 to 7 grams. Minimum 3, very highly dependent on the person. Now, what this range is, grams to milligrams, right? This is 3,000 milligrams to 7,000 milligrams. So these initial studies from way, way back were using $18,000 milligrams per day. 5 times what a normal person would get in today's standards, right? Good luck hitting 18,000 milligrams of sodium a day. It's literally not possible unless you're like drinking salt, right? Even if like when the doctors tell you not to eat a lot of sodium, it's because a lot of packaged foods have sodium. And we'll get into that. Why do packaged foods have sodium? Because they taste like shit, because they're low fat. So they have to pump them full of sodium and sugar, right? So even if you had the worst diet ever of all refined processed carbohydrates, you'd have to eat 30 Hot Pockets to get this much sodium. Yes, I looked up how many Hot Pockets you would have to eat to hit 18,000 milligrams of sodium, and it's ridiculous. Who's going to eat 30 Hot Pockets? You eat 30 Hot Pockets in one sitting, I'll give you $1,000. I'm just kidding, because someone's going to take me up on that. I completely take back that statement. Don't eat 30 Hot Pockets, right? But these initial studies use these 18,000 milligrams. It's nuts. It's not going to happen, right? And the other thing that happened is they study this the same way they study everything, the same way they say the ketogenic diet decreases performance in athletes when we studied it for 4 days and took them from high carb to low carb, right? You need a 12-week study to show full keto adaptation. And when they do that, we see increase in performance when you do the study correctly and let fat adaptation happen, right? So let's talk about this sodium thing. All these studies with 18,000 milligrams, they lasted a couple days. So you maybe saw like a short burst of increased blood pressure because the body has to compensate. It has to go, holy, we just got 18,000 milligrams of sodium. Whoa, we gotta freak out and compensate for this, right? So you'll see a change. So what the authors decided to do, and then for some reason they shelved this data, but they decided to say, okay, let's do a 4-week study with a slightly lower amount, but still ridiculous salt intake. So they did a high salt diet of 10,000 milligrams of more per day for 4 weeks straight. Okay, now we're getting into the word chronic. 4 weeks straight of over 10 grams of sodium per day led to 0 changes in total body water, 0 changes in blood pressure. 0. Literally nothing. But how can this be, right? How could we have gotten it so wrong? Well, they were caught up in their own hypothesis. It was their hypothesis that they wanted to prove. And this is what happens so much. It's the same way Ansel Keys wanted to prove that fat caused heart disease. He wanted to, so he set out to do it. Here we are, a freaking 100 years later, whatever, 50 years, 60 years later, right? And they're finding documents from his studies hidden in basements that never saw the light of day that proved against his hypothesis. And he didn't want to look like a fool. It's the same way with this, right? These scientists get stuck. It's crazy. So, this is what salt does to blood pressure. We got to talk about this. And this is the vast body of medical evidence that exists. Shows that the vast amount of human beings see virtually 0 impact on blood pressure when consuming salt in the diet. Okay? So I want to talk about this. I don't know if this one's even worth me putting up here. Yeah, let's do it. Hold on. I'm just thinking of time, everybody, but... So... 80% of people with normal blood pressure see 0 effects at all on their blood pressure when consuming salt. Normal people. Let's get into the not so normal populations. 75% of people with pre-hypertension see zero impact on blood pressure from salt intake. And they already have pre-hypertension, okay? "55% of people with hypertension see zero impact on blood pressure whatsoever based on salt consumption." Okay? So even these individuals with the highest blood pressure see zero effect whatsoever on their blood pressure when consuming salt. What? How did we get here? Again, how is this a thing? How? It's like, guys, I've been talking to you for 42 weeks. How do I not stop running out of shit? How do I not run out of shit to talk about? How? Things that we got wrong, right? It's so crazy. And we get here because of blinders. So let's think about blinders, right? It's a singular focus on one thing that people get obsessed with, instead of what we do here at Clovis, which is where we focus on the human body as a whole, with all of its glorious parts and all of its glorious functions. The obsession with blood pressure alone made us completely blind to all of the health risks associated with low salt intake. What do these include? Let's talk about them. Increased heart rate, which is a much more significant risk for cardiovascular events than blood pressure ever will be, okay? Kidney dysfunction, right? Everyone wants to talk about protein. Isn't all that protein bad for your kidneys? Isn't your low salt diet bad for your kidneys? Yup, way worse than protein, I promise you. 3, adrenal dysfunction. Let's talk about the HPA axis, let's talk about thyroid, let's talk about cortisol, stress hormones, all of these things that many of you struggle with, okay? Oh, also being cold all the time, apparently sodium as well. Hypothyroidism, low sodium, particularly low iodine, which we also get from salt, okay? Increased bad cholesterol, LDL, which isn't necessarily bad, but everybody calls it the bad cholesterol. It's an oversimplification, but raises LDL, lowers HDL, raises inflammation, raises triglycerides, stored body fat. We're going to talk about that because it raises stored body fat through higher insulin levels and insulin resistance. Here we are again, guys. What does insulin resistance lead to? Type 2 diabetes, obesity, metabolic syndrome, all the things that I talk about with you guys. Does it make any sense that I would get miraculous results in all of these people, but I have this one thing wrong? Well, that guy, people are losing 70 pounds, right? Carla just commented on here that she's down 70 pounds since being on Clovis. But I don't know, that guy's just got that salt thing wrong. I just can't bring myself. Some people tell me that they can't bring themselves to salt their food. They can't bring themselves to supplement with salt in their water. They can't bring themselves to do it. They're so scared because of brainwashing, right? It drives me crazy. People are terrified of salt. They think they're going to kill themselves, literally. And you may have noticed that a lot of those things I mentioned, right? Increased heart rate, type 2 diabetes, obesity, high triglycerides, high bad cholesterol. These are all associated with cardiovascular events. The very thing that we're trying to lower blood pressure by decreasing salt to lower the risk of cardiovascular events. What? This is so broken, guys. It's so broken, okay? And the thing is, unlike these numbers, where most people actually experience nothing at all with a high salt diet, the same is not true of a low salt diet. Virtually 100% of people on a low salt diet experience increased heart rate on an average of 4 beats per minute just from having low salt. 4 beats per minute, okay? So what I want to talk about is 4 beats per minute is pretty drastic. You know what isn't drastic? The amount your blood pressure goes down on a low salt diet. In fact, it's almost non-existent. So let's talk about this, right? Now, in Clovis, this is a good thing, a scary thing, and a mildly comical thing that I have a whole bunch of registered nurses that before they got to Clovis were completely confused on how the human body and nutrition work, right? And my registered nurses are going to jump on here and go, yay, and click the like button and the heart button because they happily admit that, because that's what we do in Clovis, right? We admit when we don't know something. and we set out to learn it, which is the opposite of what a lot of people are doing these days. So let's talk about blood pressure. And you registered nurses, I guarantee you know more about this than I do. I'm telling you. But let's talk about the basics for those people who have never taken a blood pressure reading, right? We have this idea of something over something, right? Blood pressure, normal, 120 over 80 or below, right? So we have systolic blood pressure, this top one, right? Right? We have systolic, we have diastolic blood pressure, okay? This is the pressure in your arteries during the contraction of your heart. This is the pressure of your arteries when your heart is relaxed, okay? Now, what you guys need to understand is this recommendation that the AHA gives of like preferably less than 1,500 milligrams of sodium a day, which is insane, and an absolute maximum of 2,300 milligrams of sodium a day. If you do the 2,300 milligrams of sodium per day, this is what your blood pressure goes down by on average. That's what a low salt diet is going to give you in terms of blood pressure improvement. You're going to go from 120 over 80 to 119 over 80. Does this make sense? Do you know what this sounds like to me? The success rate of almost every pharmaceutical drug on the market, including antidepressants. That's what this sounds like to me. It's horrific. This isn't a result. This is nothing. This is worse than placebo, right? It's insane, and that's best case scenario. Now, the truth is, in many people with normal blood pressure, pre-hypertension and hypertension, they actually see a rise in blood pressure when they switch to a low-salt diet. This is clinically documented, okay? So we know that there's this idea of compensation and keeping things balanced. Like in the alkaline diet, the myth last week, we talked about how the body has these systems in place to balance blood pH. Same thing with salt and water levels, okay? So when we restrict salt, the body tries to retain more salt and water from the diet, retains it to keep levels in balance, okay? So even if this myth were true and we saw a significant reduction in blood pressure from low salt intake, because of how the body compensates, there's a serious trade-off. So we're getting this kind of result at the expense of added overall stress to the heart and the arteries, which actually increase the risk of hypertension and heart failure. Restricted salt equals elevated heart rate. This reduces blood and oxygen circulation throughout the entire body, which in turn increases the heart's need for oxygen and increases the risk of events, right? So not only does low salt not improve blood pressure, it certainly doesn't improve the risk of cardiovascular events. It can actually increase the risk pretty significantly. Crazy shit, right? This is nuts, guys. I can't even believe this. We're here all the time. All right, let me see. Let me check some comments real quick, see how you guys are looking. How about the girl who eats salt like it's her job and her BP is 92 over 58? Boom. Nailed it. Also a nurse. It's very hard to follow bullshit doctor's orders after being educated to the truth, I must admit. Yeah, that's very true. That's got to be tough. Never ate salt, now I eat it on anything. Salt, Sean. Sean, you're killing it. You're a salt queen over here. I never ate salt, now I eat it on everything and do salt shots. Haven't had a headache in more than half a year. Perfect. We're going to talk about that too. We're going to talk about detox and all that. I'm freezing 24/7 and forget my salt shots too frequently. Yes. Slap that Hot Pocket out of your hand. I think there was an earlier episode, one of the AMAs, where I told somebody you're going to get slapped in the face with a Hot Pocket, I think. That's pretty funny. All right. Just a couple comments I want to see. Hashtag Salt Queen. I like it. Make a t-shirt. All right. Oh, speaking of which, yeah, we'll get there. I'm going to launch a product today. Sounds cool, right? Stick around to the end. I'll launch a new product. Okay, so we talked about the heart. We talked about blood pressure. We talked about cardiovascular events. Now we're going to talk about the poor kidneys. Why? Because people love to tell me that a high-protein diet is going to crush your kidneys. Low salt is a fast track for kidney dysfunction, okay? And the kidneys in your body are freaking amazing. What do I mean by that? This is what they do every day. And those of us with normal blood pressure, 120 over 80 or less, right? those of us with normal blood pressure and normal kidney function, we can easily excrete 10 times more sodium per day than we consume. Very strange, right? Because sodium and water are constantly balancing each other out. And there's constant sodium retention, there's sodium reabsorption, there's sodium excretion, okay? We're gonna talk about all this. Now, when there's more sodium in the blood, more free-floating sodium, meaning we are putting more sodium in the blood through diet, the kidneys reabsorb less and excrete more in the urine. The more that we have, the more it can excrete because it's not scarcity, right? The body keeps everything in check. On a daily basis, this filtering mechanism of our kidneys filters 3.2 to 3.6 pounds of salt per day. That's more than 150 times what we ingest per day. Yet the AHA, American Heart Association, is going to tell you 1,500 to 2,300 milligrams per sodium a day is too high. It's crazy. Our kidneys filter that every 5 minutes. It's nuts, guys. Salt plays a critical role in every cellular function in the entire body. Without it, we die. We can't do anything without it, okay? So please, can we take this idea of lowering salt intake with a grain of salt? See what I did there? Boom! Nailed it. Right? That was a good one, guys. Yeah, high five. Okay, cool. Moving on. Seriously, it's actually the constant conservation and reabsorption of salt that is the biggest stress on the kidneys. That's really where we're crushing our kidneys. The low sodium intake causes it to constantly cycle and reabsorb and retain and conserve sodium. This is really, really difficult, guys. It's a tremendous caloric load as well. It's pretty crazy, like the amount of ATP it takes just for that reabsorption. 70% of the calories that your kidneys consume simply goes to filtering, reabsorbing, conserving sodium. It's insane. So the workload we're putting on the kidneys is tremendous when we don't give the body enough sodium and cause it to conserve, okay? So do your freaking kidneys a favor and supplement with some sodium. So let's talk about what low salt does in the body as a whole. Now, salt, like I said, is essential. This means it's essential for human survival. Without it, you die. The same way we talked about the body, again, regulating pH last week when we debunked the alkaline diet. The body's super good at regulating salt levels in the body. When you restrict salt intake, the body goes into full-blown panic mode because without it, it's gonna die and it knows that. So it does whatever it can to store and hold on to more salt. One of the first things it does the body does to retain salt is spikes insulin. This helps the kidneys retain more sodium. The spiked insulin actually sends a signal to the kidneys to start retaining more sodium. From Clovis and these 42 AMAs that you guys have now, what happens when we spike insulin levels? Fat storage, insulin resistance, eventual type 2 diabetes if high insulin remains chronic, right? That's what leads to type 2 diabetes. It's this spiked insulin. Why would we want this? So now we know that low salt leads to high insulin. Why the heck would we ever want that, right? Now, here's what happens. Women, I need to talk to you about this because I get so many messages about it. When you lower your salt intake and your insulin goes through the roof, you start to crave carbohydrates. You start to crave sugar because of the insulin spike. Why does this happen? Because as you know, when we talked about the fasting, number 25, the benefits of fasting, lowering insulin, when insulin is spiked, we cannot burn fat. If insulin levels are high in the body, we can't burn fat, right? So what happens when we spike insulin? Fat is off the table as an energy source. So what's going to happen? The body needs to create ATP at all times for every function in the body or it dies, right? So if we spike insulin and shut off access to fat, we can no longer burn fat. That means we have one energy source left that we can use to create ATP. What is that energy source? Carbs. It's the only thing you can do. It's the only fuel source you have left because insulin's through the roof, right? So the body literally makes you crave carbohydrates, so you will eat more carbohydrates so the body can access the energy and it can use the glucose to create ATP. Low sodium, spiked insulin, carbohydrate cravings. Yes, you can read through the lines and listen to me saying if you increase your salt intake, it will help you with your sugar cravings. I get messages all the time. How do I handle these sugar cravings? How do I do it? How do I do it? Right? Start salting the crap out of your food. You really can't overdo it. You're not going to get too much sodium by salting your food because the body has built-in shut-off mechanisms that it doesn't have for sugar. If you have too much sodium, the body is going to be repulsed by the taste of sodium. It does that on purpose because it's that critical for human survival. Sugar's not critical for human survival at all. So we don't have these mechanisms in place because we're not meant to get a whole bunch of it. Never before in history have we had access to this much sugar, okay? So I want to talk about the fact that hypertension is a metabolic disorder. It's been known since the 1980s that hypertension is a metabolic disorder. In particular, a state of insulin resistance. Hypertension is a state of insulin resistance. In fact, up to 80% of people with hypertension have also been found to be insulin resistant, okay? Hypertension is found to cluster in patients that have high blood glucose, high insulin, and obesity. High triglycerides, high cholesterol, all these things, right? It was even published in the New England Journal of Medicine that, quote, essential hypertension is an insulin-resistant state. Essential hypertension is an insulin-resistant state, end quote. Crazy, guys. What causes insulin resistance? Clovis Academy, I am Clovis, Clovis Kids, tell me about it. What causes insulin resistance? High carb, low fat diets. If you have even remotely high blood pressure, what is your doctor going to put you on? High carb, low fat diets with little to no salt intake. This is a metabolic death sentence, literally. It's everything that Clovis advises against. Everything. Insulin resistance, okay? There's a direct correlation between increased body sodium and high insulin levels. Diabetics hold on to salt in their body because with that low salt diet, it goes into full-blown panic mode. And on top of that, it's going to just stack onto the obesity, the metabolic syndrome, the type 2 diabetes. Why? Because they're going to crave sugar and carbohydrates just from not eating enough salt, guys. Crazy, okay? Now, it's getting late, and I promised to talk about sex. Let's talk about sex, y'all. Let's talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Sometimes I forget that this content is evergreen, and I'm going to be singing Let's Talk About Sex on a podcast until the end of time. Congratulations, Justin. Welcome to Clovis. All right, salt, sex, and reproduction. Salt is essential for just about everything in the human body. We've already been through that on a cellular level. This includes digestion, cellular communication, nerve impulses to organs, bone formation, proper hydration levels like we talked about, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Literally everything, okay? So a low salt diet literally acts like natural contraceptive in both animals and human studies. I'm going to say that again. A low-salt diet literally acts like a natural contraceptive in both animals and human diets. This is true of both sexes, men and women. This equates to reduced sex drive in humans, reduced litter size in animals, reduced weight of infants in humans, increased instances of erectile dysfunction in humans, chronic fatigue, chronic sleep issues, and it lowers the age at which women become infertile. Can we just absorb that for a second? All the women who are still terrified of salting their food, okay? A low-salt diet literally lowers the age at which women become infertile. And can we touch on this issue of men? Now, as you guys know, 85% of you are women. 85% of my Clovis audience is women. We had new dudes sign up for the I Am Clovis protocol today. So cool, boom, boom, boom. Get to work with some dudes, awesome. But let's touch on the issue of men here. And women, we're gonna be talking about your hubbies. I said this to my dad. I have a podcast coming out with my dad. And I said, Dad, you're 59, you're 5'10", you have 6-pack abs, and you deadlift over 310 pounds. What? My dad is considered extremely weird for 59. Because if you take the average person, and we had this conversation, and it makes him a little uncomfortable. If you take the average person and say, close your eyes and picture an average 59-year-old man in America. You're going to close your eyes, you're going to picture someone who's probably balding, you're going to picture somebody who has a big giant beach belly. That big beach belly is called visceral fat, a beer belly. A beer belly is just a belly full of visceral fat, fat surrounding your organs. So if you have a husband like this, women, I'm talking about your husbands directly. We have an epidemic of beer bellies in America, in middle-aged men. We have an epidemic of these men with beer bellies being miserable and fulfilling the sitcom stereotype of a husband who's just listening to what his wife says, right? Why do these guys end up miserable? Because their doctors are telling them to eat less fat and reduce their salt intake and get rid of all the foods that they love and replace it with bland, low-fat, whatever boxed food that they're supposed to eat, right? And their wives are usually the ones that have to enforce this diet. They switch to low. How many of you have a husband that had high blood pressure and the doctor told him to avoid salt, and then all of a sudden the wife is somehow in charge of like monitoring the husband's salt intake? I see it all the time. I get emails from women that are like, yeah, the doctor keeps telling my husband that he can't have salt, and now I switched to Clovis and it just feels weird and I don't know what to do and I'm going against the doctor's orders, right? There's an epidemic of this low fat, low salt thing with men. Now let's talk about cholesterol. I have told you guys this before in the hormone episode. I think it was AMA number 31, Hormones Finding the Balance. We talk about how cholesterol is a precursor for all sex hormones. Cholesterol is a precursor for all sex hormones, including testosterone. Low cholesterol diet and statin drugs equals low testosterone. Okay? Low fat, low cholesterol equals low testosterone. Low salt equals increased instances of erectile dysfunction. Is it really worth it to go from 120 over 80 to 119 over 80? Right? Think of what we're sacrificing here. Is it any wonder that Viagra is a popular drug? Nope, not at all. Somebody get these poor bastards a grass-fed ribeye with a fat sweet potato smothered in grass-fed butter and coated with a layer of Redmond Sea Salt. Please, I promise you, your next date night is going to be a lot more exciting. Because I don't know about you, but I'll take the cardiovascular event over not performing in the bedroom any day of the week. Straight up. Maybe my priorities are twisted. I don't know. It's all correlated, you guys. It's all twisted in this weird way. Let's give them low fat. Let's give them low salt. And then let's sell them Viagra. Let's sell them blood pressure medication. Let's put them on a low fat diet. Let's put them on a low salt diet. Let's sell them Viagra. And then let's sell him an antidepressant when he hates his life. Crazy, guys. Crazy, right? Now, how much time we got? Let's move into women. Let's talk about pregnancy and breastfeeding. It's a big deal. The same issues that we're seeing with men, just work in different ways with women. These are hormonal problems, okay? So salt, as we talked about, can lower the age at which a woman can become infertile, can't have babies anymore, right? It not only plays a role in the woman's ability to get pregnant, it can also impact the future health of the baby. It gets crazy, literally. What she's eating while she's pregnant impacts the future health of that child. Lack of salt can impair the growth of the fetus. It can impair the growth of the infant into adulthood. These problems carry into adulthood because when the fetus has no sodium in the body, what did we just say the body does when it doesn't have enough sodium? It freaks out, it panics, it goes into starvation, panic mode. The baby's born that way. okay? The baby's born with its own body already freaking out. It's crazy. And I want you to keep this in mind, because if you're pregnant and you're dealing with things like nausea, or if you ever get diarrhea or you're vomiting, you're excreting more salt. You need more sodium. More sodium than usual. You need more sodium than usual when you're pregnant. Again, I am not a doctor. I do not play one on the internet. This is not medical advice. This podcast, this video, everything is going to be littered with a medical disclaimer. I'm just sharing my own personal information with you, okay? But this is crazy, guys. It's so important. If you're losing that much salt to morning sickness or whatever, then you may need more. If I were pregnant, I would consider it. But I can't get pregnant because I'm not Arnold Schwarzenegger. Remember that movie? Nailed it. Okay, so low salt during pregnancy can lead to problems in the child. Higher tendencies and risk of diabetes, obesity, and hypertension as the child grows and grows into adulthood. It also increases the odds of abnormal cholesterol levels, an abnormal lipid profile, high triglycerides, low HDL, high LDL, just from what you ate a low-salt diet during pregnancy. It's crazy. Now, not to mention, another thing I want to talk about, because we talked about thyroid health and we briefly touched on iodine. Iodine is a big culprit of hypothyroidism in a lot of instances, okay? And we get iodine from salt in very small amounts, because iodine is an essential mineral, but it's essential in trace amounts. It's measured in micrograms, very, very small. It's not like milligrams or grams with sodium, okay? Like, hands down, the highest concentration of electrolytes are sodium chloride together, table salt. They dissolve as electrolytes in the blood, okay? So NaCl, sodium chloride, that's getting way out into the weeds. We're getting into chemistry there, right? But sodium chloride dissolves in the body as electrolytes, and the highest concentration of electrolytes in the blood is sodium chloride, okay? So there you go. I got off on a tangent there. But during pregnancy, the need for iodine increases by 50%. You have to understand that. So doctors are still telling women while they're pregnant to do a high carb, low fat, low salt diet. The need for iodine goes up by 50%. Oh, and low iodine is the leading cause of mental retardation. Think about that. I joke around a lot, guys, but this stuff is disturbing, man. A study published in Lancet of more than 2,000 pregnant women found that a low-salt diet, when compared to a high-salt diet, caused more miscarriages, caused more premature births, and caused more stillbirths. Let that sink in. And again, 50% increased need for iodine, and iodine deficiency being the #1 cause of mental retardation. Now, on top of that, once the baby is born, we talk about lactation. Lactation also places an increased nutritional demand on the mother to be able to supply enough nutrients for the baby, sodium being an essential nutrient. So obviously, you are excreting salt within the breast milk. When people say you're eating for two, think about this. When Americans go, you're eating for two, have another slice of cheesecake, it's really, you're eating for two, take in a little more sodium. This is an essential nutrient. The Ben & Jerry's that you get free range to eat when you're pregnant is not an essential nutrient, okay? Now, again, in animals and human studies, low salt diets reduce lactation. And during lactation, in the lactation, salt is one of these key essential nutrients, okay? So it's essential for both milk production and the nutrient density of said milk. So to be clear, salt is essential for human life at all stages. At all stages, salt is essential for human life. Remember that. So now let's get into recommendations, okay? So I can sum this up real quick. You guys are, most of you are in the Clovis Academy that are watching this live. A lot of you are in I Am Clovis. Let's talk about salt recommendations. So the optimal range. Now again, you guys know with Clovis, I don't make blanket statements, ever. It actually frustrates some of you. It's funny to watch, but I don't make blanket statements. My answer to a question is usually, it depends. give me more information, I need details, right? So for the average person, the sodium, again, this is not total salt intake, this is sodium intake. So like a quarter teaspoon of Redmond Sea Salt, let's say, has about 600 milligrams of sodium, okay? So a half teaspoon is gonna get you about a gram, okay? So the optimal range is 3 to 6 grams. Now I know I said 3 to 7 grams earlier, so I'm gonna explain to you why, okay? But the optimal range for an average person is 3 to 6 grams per day. Now, Redmond Sea Salt, people ask why I picked this. And most salt is gonna say it does not provide iodine, blah, 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 right? They put that on the labels for like almost everything. But Redmond Sea Salt, if you got just over 3 grams of all of your sodium intake, if it was coming from Redmond Sea Salt, you would also get 45 milligrams of calcium, 8 milligrams of magnesium, 9 milligrams of potassium, and 178 micrograms of iodine. If you were to get all of your sodium intake, your 3 grams or more, from Redmond Sea Salt. It's a fantastic brand, okay? Now, the reason why I say 3 to 6 here, and you guys hear me say 3 to 7 a lot, is we're gonna talk about when you need more, and then I'm gonna open it up for some questions, okay? So if you have autoimmune issues, when we talk about leaky gut and lectins and all these things, right? There's still so much confusion about lectins and seeds and whatever, right? If you have IBS, if you have Crohn's, any kind of leaky gut, these things impair salt absorption. So you're absorbing less salt than you're ingesting. A lot more is going to get excreted because you have digestion issues. So you may need more salt then. I can't say that you absolutely do, right? Again, not medical advice. None of this is medical advice. When you're on a low carbohydrate diet, hence salt shots, everybody, you need more salt. Why? Because high levels of ketones in the blood when you're burning fat and lower levels of blood glucose both cause excretion of sodium, okay? So high ketone levels, low blood glucose causes excretion of sodium. This is also why when people detox in the beginning of Clovis, I tell them to do more salt shots. They may need as much as 2 grams more than the recommended amount in their first week of detox when they switch to low carb because their body's freaking out, right? So part of the sugar detox is actually salt depletion. So I want to be clear about that. Just remember that. That's why when people are like, oh, I got a headache, I'm going through such sugar detox, and I go, drink salt water, and they're like, my headache went away. That's weird. That's because you're excreting more salt, okay? You're excreting sodium. So again, following a low carb diet, even following it long term, you can need an additional 1 to 2 grams of sodium per day. Now again, we talked about pregnant and lactating, pregnant and breastfeeding. You may need more salt. I'm gonna say this just to cover my ass, talk to your doctor. Good luck, you're probably gonna get laughed at, but I am not a doctor, don't take medical advice from me. This is not medical advice, okay? And extremely important for those of you in Clovis, like myself, who are physically active, right? I work out every day. So I have to think about this. Intense exercise for 1 hour can cause you to lose up to 2 grams of sodium per hour through sweat. Now this brings me to another point. I wasn't sure if I was going to talk about this, but I want to because I'll leave time for Q&A, I promise. But motivation. In the manifesto, you always hear me talk about motivation. I do not rely on willpower or motivation. My discipline brings me freedom. My discipline is my superpower. I talk about discipline, right? Motivation is fleeting, and there are a lot of aspects that can affect your motivation and willpower in significant ways. One of them being a low-salt diet. So let me talk to you about this. As we talked about, if you have too much sodium in the diet, you will find sodium repulsive. You can't eat anymore. The body has a shutoff valve. If you take in too much at a time, which I've done, you will get diarrhea. And then you're fine. No harm, no foul. No lasting effects on this. The body has built-in regulations for sodium, okay? Now, it also goes into storage mode, starvation, panic mode, right? So, the human brain will instinctually do what it needs to do for survival. If you are on a low-salt diet, and the body knows that regulating salt and retaining salt is a life or death situation, why on earth would the brain
motivate you to exercise and lose more salt via sweat. It wouldn't. That literally goes against your survival instincts. So if you are following a low salt diet, it literally hijacks your brain and tells your body to be as sedentary as possible. As sedentary as humanly possible to conserve calories so the kidneys can keep excreting, so the kidneys can keep reabsorbing and conserving sodium. It literally tells your body the last thing in the world we want to do right now is exercise. We won't do it. It destroys your motivation. You would literally be going against your built-in survival mechanisms to want to go to the gym and work out when you're following a low-salt diet. Think about that. That's crazy, everybody. Think about it. You ever have trouble going to the gym? Try some more salt. And we're going to talk about this, okay? I jump out of bed first thing in the morning, and I consume 3 grams, my daily minimum, right off the bat in 16 ounces of water via Redmond Sea Salt. 20 minutes later, I am in my home gym working out after a meditation. That's how my morning goes. Wake up, salt water, meditation, gym. Boom. I'm crushing it, right? And I also want to talk to you guys about, because of this, pre-workout, right? Now, I'll give you an example. So glycolytic work requires glucose for energy. Jiu-jitsu is very glycolytic, right? It's very, very glycolytic. Now, I go to jiu-jitsu in the evenings. So I don't want to take my own pre-workout formula in the evenings because it contains caffeine, about as much as a cup and a half of coffee from whole bean coffee extract, okay? So I don't take my pre-workout at 6:45 at night when I'm driving to jiu-jitsu. What I do is take my Clovis blender bottle filled with water, and I put a half teaspoon of Redmond's real salt, and I'll throw 1 scoop or even half a scoop of post-workout. Puts a little bit of glucose in my system, somewhere between 3 to 5 grams of glucose in my system, little bit of protein, some branched chain amino acids for added energy, and I get that sodium in my system. It's a fantastic pre-workout, and I just sip it in my 15-minute ride to jiu-jitsu. That's it. So, 3 to 6 grams, 3 to 7 is more like it because you're following a low to moderate carbohydrate diet if you are Clovis. And if you're physically active, add to it. It's a lot like BMR. People want to take their basal metabolic rate and subtract calories on it from a caloric deficit. You're going to kill yourself. That's insane. That's insane. You're not taking into account the thermic effect of food. You're not taking into account total daily energy expenditure. None of that stuff. You take BMR and add to it with all your daily needs. Then you subtract calories from there. That's where everybody screws this up. They don't know how to do the math. That's why I do the math for you, right? So it's crazy. The same thing goes with this sodium thing. This is your bare minimum for survival. So if you're going to start sweating for 2 hours a day, or me, I do the sauna every day. You know how much sweat I lose in a sauna? I have to think about that. I salt the crap out of my food, and I drink this the first thing I get out of bed in the morning. I think a lot of you guys would be really, really surprised how much things can change by just this one little salt trick. That's it. Literally. Get some Redmond Sea Salt. Do it. All right? That's AMA number 42. Blood pressure, salt, and sex. It's a fun episode, right? Now, I want to share something with you guys. Let's do a little Q&A first. Let's hit some Q&A. What questions do you guys have about salt? I'm going to get some links, and I'm going to share something with you, okay? So let's see. Let's look at some comments. What do we got? Love the truth even when it hurts. Yes. Me too, man. I wish I'd known. So much vomiting with the boys. Yes, of course. I wish that they would tell people this. Day made. Aaron. Nice. Awesome. Funny. Laughing. I'm about to stop eating salt then since I just came off the pill. That's hilarious. That's awesome. That song was coming. Yup. Mind blown. I have noticed my leg cramps are gone. Yes, electrolytes are huge for that. All electrolytes, right? Now remember, the predominant electrolyte in the body is sodium chloride dissolved as electrolytes, right? Downing Redmond salt water right now. Yes, that is awesome. I'm so glad you're doing that. All right, we're back up to doctors and their advice. Hit me with some more questions, guys. This salt thing is so important. I'm going to grab a couple of links for you guys.
I know it's weird whenever I have to type with you all, but it's cool. I need to share something with you. Grab this link. All right. Does the dosage change for kids? That's a really good question. I would imagine so. I'm gonna have to get back to you on that. I actually don't know the answer to that. Obviously, it's essential. But you know what? In all the research I've done on this, I have never seen a child dose for salt. Now, again, they're not going to overdose on it. So maybe you could start with 3 grams and see what happens. You know, now don't give it to them all at once. That's the other thing I want to tell you guys. I do 3 grams all at once in the morning. Don't do that. You're probably going to get diarrhea. It's not fun, and you'll be in there multiple times. Like it can be intense, right? So I worked my way up to that. I used to do a half teaspoon in the morning and then did a full teaspoon. And now I'm at what's technically 1.5 teaspoons. It's 3 half teaspoons. This is a gram per half teaspoon. So with your kids, I would probably start with doses of like, quarter teaspoons. Maybe try that. But again, I'm not afraid of this number. I'm not a doctor. I'm certainly not all that familiar with the medical literature for children here, okay? I'm not pretending. But I wouldn't be afraid of this number. I would experiment with your kids and see how they feel. You know, the odds of you hurting them with this are probably slim to none, but again, not a doctor. So feel free to look into that. Yeah, do some poking around. If you find out, let me know. That'd be great. What else we got? What? I don't know, Carla. What? I don't know what that's in response to. All right, I'll hang out for some questions. Anything else we got? Sodium, salt, blood pressure, sex, breastfeeding, pregnancy, erectile dysfunction. This is fun, right? What's wrong with me if I don't sweat much, even during high activity? Well, if I had to guess, that's probably your body purposefully retaining sodium. I bet you would sweat more freely if you had an adequate salt intake. Now, there's a lot to that, because there are a lot of obese people who are on low salt diets who sweat profusely, and that's a different thing. That's, literal like thermogenesis in the body. There's a lot to that. I don't entirely know. I don't know if that, I'm sure there's a genetic factor at play, but maybe try upping your salt intake and see what happens on your next workout. Could be. Because I said I had something to tell you. Yes. Yeah, they do well with daily goals. I don't know, Shannon, poke around, look it up. I totally use salt water to help my kids' headaches. Yeah, that's fantastic. That's a great idea. It's so much better than, oh my God, man. When people have headaches and they just down Tylenol and ibuprofen, literally burns holes in your gut, directly contributes to leaky gut. And people are like, but I get headaches, Justin. I can't give up my ibuprofen. I'm like, you can if you just get over doctor's advice and start drinking sea salt, right? Why haven't you gone to school to become a functional medicine doctor? Because I really don't want to. No, I do not plan on doing that at all. No. The idea of being in daily practice like that, not my thing. I'm a type A entrepreneur by trade, and if you guys could see my day, you would understand that there's no way I could function in that environment. There's a reason why I built out a straight up biohacking lab in my house. I have an infrared sauna, I have a CrossFit, powerlifting, jiu-jitsu, gymnastics gym in my house. I work on my back porch most of the time. I do everything from here. I like to travel. I would never want to be locked down. The idea of being a functional medicine doctor just reminds me of a 9 to 5. Now, I respect them. I love them for doing it, but man, that's not my gig. No way. Ibuprofen causes leaky gut. Yes, assuredly, 100%. Okay? What about the opposite of Carlin? What if I sweat a lot? Is that a genetic thing or something my diet can change? Again, I don't fully know the answer to that question. It's worth exploring. It probably has a genetic component. Could have to do with sodium intake. Could have to do with hydration levels. There's a lot to it, and I really don't know. There's also a microbiome aspect to this, and I know that for certain because there's a lot of people who can get something like Mother Dirt, their AO mist, and spray those skin probiotics. People that get tremendous pit stains, I used to have them terribly on stage. Prescription strength deodorant could do nothing for the amount of sweat. Switch to AO mist, probiotics. I literally don't use deodorant 99.99% of the time.
I spray probiotics on my armpits and everything's cool. It's really unbelievable. So there's a microbiome aspect to this as well. So genetics, microbiome, salt intake, hydration. It's a really tough thing to pinpoint. You can try, or just try to look up some literature on it. Will increasing salt improve fertility? Yes. Heather, go back. Again, I'm not a doctor, not medical advice. I cannot say that enough times. But you need to go back and rewatch this if you missed it. I did a whole segment on fertility. A low salt diet drastically reduces the age at which a woman becomes infertile. A low salt diet can lead directly to infertility. So the opposite is more than likely true, right? But I'm not a doctor. Remember that. If you want information on fertility, Chris Kresser. Go look up Chris Kresser's stuff. He has a paid program for fertility, but I promise you it's a hell of a lot cheaper than in vitro, whatever people are doing these days for $20,000 a pop with no guarantees, right? Just fix the diet. That's it. I'm doing 3 teaspoons a day. Should I up this weekend while I'm at my sister's 21st B-Day celebration? It depends. It depends on how much you're going to be drinking. I mean, obviously, alcohol is going to dehydrate you. I'm assuming you're not going to drink to the point of getting sick, but if you were to drink to the point of getting sick, you're definitely going to lose a lot more salt if you were to get sick or something like that. But yeah, you're going to be dehydrated. So I would absolutely increase the salt intake if I were you. Now, you're doing 6 grams. It's quite a bit, right? So it's a lot of sodium. 6 grams of sodium, you should be fine. If you have adequate water intake and you're doing 6 grams of sodium, you should be just fine even with a weekend of drinking. That said, a little trick, if you want to avoid the issues with alcohol, I try to tell people this, and I know it's hard when you're in a party scenario like that. If you can have your last drink 3 hours prior to bedtime, the better you're going to feel in the morning. That's a huge hack. If there's one thing I can tell you, by the time it's 3 hours before bedtime, everyone's drunk anyway. No one's going to know if you're drinking. I don't care if you get hammered up to that point. Just have your last drink 3 hours prior to bedtime and go for something like 2 or 3 grams, if you can handle it, of sodium in water before bed. Your morning is going to be completely different, I promise you. Just trying to recover as much as possible. Don't want to affect my training. No, it shouldn't. Yeah, and keep in mind how many miles you're putting in, right? If I tell you that 1 hour of intense exercise, you can lose up to 2 grams of sodium. Now, intense exercise should be intense. So if you do a 45-minute run, you may only be looking at if you do a 45-minute run, you may only be looking at 1 gram of sodium that you're losing, right? It might not be as crazy as doing an hour-long CrossFit workout. You're going to lose a full 2 grams of sodium, for sure, right? Very important. All right, what else we got here? Any more questions? We got ibuprofen. We got alcohol. I have trouble calculating that time period when drunk. Yes, absolutely. I will say that's the #1 alcohol hack I've ever found. And guys, I was a drunk for 15 years, okay? Trust me on this. I have explored alcohol in every way, shape, and form imaginable. By the way, I got some more Dry Farm wines on the way. Thank you, David, from Dry Farm. You're my buddy. I love that dude so much. But anyway, yeah. Trouble calculating. Yep, I drink, I think you're thinking of Himalayan, yep. Oh, Hawaiian salt? Is that a thing? I drink Hawaiian salt water. Hawaiian salt in water after a night of drinking? That'd be cool if there's Hawaiian. I don't know if you're Hawaiian, Himalayan, either way, but wake up feeling like a champ. Yeah, absolutely. So these little alcohol hacks are important. Now, the other big alcohol hack has nothing to do with sodium, but that would be activated charcoal. If you can pick up activated charcoal, actually, sports research just released a new activated charcoal that is in a lipid form. It's really interesting, and I got it. I got some, but anyway, yeah. I'm gonna experiment with that, but I don't drink that much anymore. But anyway, activated charcoal, huge, 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 huge. Try to have 1 capsule of activated charcoal literally with every single drink, and then salt water. Like, you won't even feel like you drank the next day. It's incredible. All right, so I want to show you guys something. I made something just for you, just for fall. Here we go. I'm gonna share a link with you, and this is this. Eat whole foods. Change the world.
Eat whole foods, change the world. Here's a link for you for your new t-shirt. Boom. Go to that link, and I've made 2 t-shirts for you guys. So I have these brand new Eat Whole Foods, Change the World t-shirts. We made a 3/4 sleeve baseball tee, okay, unisex. I did this all unisex at the request of the people in the academy that I talked to about this. I usually communicate with you guys directly to see what you want. I wish I had one for you. I thought about waiting till I had one to launch it, but they just got delivered to the warehouse on Monday, and I was too excited, so get on there and buy some. The other thing is, the first 50 people that buy a t-shirt are also going to get a Clovis Building a Healthy Life Together decal sticker. The first 50 of you will get that for free with your t-shirt. I have 50 of them specifically, and when they're gone, they are gone. So this is one style of t-shirt you can get. That link I just shared is your 3/4 baseball tee, Eat Whole Foods, Change the World t-shirt, and I have another one for you. Now, this is a V-neck. We have a charcoal V-neck that also features Eat Whole Foods, Change the World. You can get your hands on these right now on the Clovis store. So there, I'm gonna share another link. Boom. So first link is your 3/4 baseball tee. Second link is your V-neck t-shirts, charcoal V-neck. They're both awesome. I'm probably gonna get my hands on one of each for my dad and I. So that's 4 t-shirts down. So get on there, get yourself a t-shirt. The first 50, it's right there in the comments. So the first 50 people to buy a t-shirt are going to get a free Clovis Building a Healthy Life Together decal. Let me see. My blender bottle's in the car. I would show you what the Clovis decal looks like, but don't have that on hand right now. But you're gonna get a Clovis Building a Healthy Life Together sticker decal in your shipment with your t-shirt when you get it shipped to you. So that's the first 50. That's it. First come, first serve. At the end of the 50, those stickers are going to be gone. So go get your hands on them, okay? Just reloaded. Okay, awesome. So the first link is, again, the 3/4 baseball tee. Go check those out. The second link is the charcoal V-neck. Eat Whole Foods, Change the World. I don't think I've ever been this excited about a t-shirt in Clovis. I think these are fantastic. Also, there is a bunch of new merch in the store that I haven't even told you guys about. But anyway, so go check out the new store, clovis.store. It's a brand new website. The whole thing is brand new. You'll love it. Also, I have a boatload of articles up there. So what I finally did was went through all of the articles from my old website and uploaded most of them. There are still some that need to be loaded back onto the new store. So again, go to clovis.store. And on the shop tab in the navigation bar on the top, if you hover over the word shop, you're gonna see merch. So you can go on there, you can check out all the merch I have in the Clovis store, and then you can hover over the blog, and you're gonna see Ask Me Anything, you're gonna see fitness, you'll see nutrition, you'll see recipes, all these things. So go to clovis.store, brand new website, check out all the stuff I have to offer. A lot of these articles I think you guys are really gonna like. How much protein do you actually need? Why counting calories doesn't work? What I learned at Paleo Effects, that one took me back. It was like a nostalgic moment of thinking about my very first Paleo Effects. Things about fitness, steady state cardio is stupid, simple strength, all these things, right? There's fantastic, stop following the rules is another good one. People get so obsessive about these paleo rules. I have a boatload of articles. Go check that out at clovis.store in the blog section. Check out the merch section. Grab up everything that you want. Go get it. You guys are gonna love this, okay? I promise you, we're gonna have more stuff coming out in the future. The recipe book is right around the corner. I got the first edit of it today. Very close to done. So there will be a recipe book that's in the store very soon. I haven't decided if I'm gonna put that in the store. I'll probably launch it to I Am Clovis first, and then launch it to the general public. And I'm probably going to talk more about it on next week's AMA. As always, send me AMA topics. Let me know what you want to talk about. Let me know who you want to see on my new podcast. Guys, I'm just waiting a little bit just to get Apple to accept the new podcast, and then I'm going to be launching interviews. Fantastic interviews with incredible people. I had an incredible interview last night, more of a conversation, less of an interview, with my buddy Abel James, the Fat Burning Man. We talked for almost 2.5 hours. It's one of my favorite podcasts of all time, and it's mine, so that's pretty freaking awesome, right? Clovis is on the back of the shirt. Yes, it is. Clovis is on the back of the shirt, both shirts. Shirts from regular size. You guys are asking me questions. I don't know anything about clothes, guys. I really don't. I think they run small because I think we did next level just like the other ones. And I know with me, like this is a medium t-shirt. And when I wear the Clovis mediums, I feel a little weird about my muscles popping out everywhere. It's a little bit, they cling a little bit. So, yeah, I think they run a little bit small, I think, but I literally know nothing about clothes or fabric or any of those things, okay? So yes, Clovis is on the back of the shirt. I think they run a little small if I had to guess. I know they don't run big, so yeah, I'm gonna guess, I think they run a little bit small. I think I have small, medium, large, extra large, and 2XL. I think I went up to 2XL. So, have fun, guys. It's gonna be awesome. And the other thing is, I don't know if they're all the same, like the new pink shirts and the tanks and all that stuff. Couldn't tell you if they run small or not. I'm really sorry, I have no idea. But I know these new ones, the 3/4 T baseball and the V-neck, those are both next level, and I'm very, very familiar with those shirts, and I love them. They're some of my favorite shirts. I've been using them since the original old school tribal brown and green original Clovis logo. I love those shirts. I wear them all the time. I wear them in the gym. I know Peta, my MMA fighter, she trains like exclusively in my next level. She's got paleo powder shirts for days, right? And that's like all she trains in, which is pretty cool. So go check that stuff out. If you guys are enjoying this, I want you to click the like button, click the love button, click the happy face, click the share button. You can share this directly to your timeline, tag your friends in it, share, 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 share. If you're listening on the podcast, click the subscribe button, share this with your friends. It's on every major listening platform for podcasts, and we got a new podcast coming out. It's gonna be incredible. I cannot wait. Thank you guys for being here. This is Ask Me Anything number 42, blood pressure, salt, and sex? Every time. All right, guys, thank you so much for being here. I hope you learned a lot. Thank you for letting me do this. Thank you for letting me do what I love day in and day out. Thank you for letting me launch exciting new products, and thanks for hanging out with me the whole way through, over an hour on this one. I hope you guys appreciate the information. I will see you tomorrow in the Facebook groups. I am Clovis, the Clovis Academy. We still got Clovis kids going in there. We need to get some more kids in Clovis kids, everybody. So share this, tag your friends, go out, love your people, do amazing things. Get off your devices after you order t-shirts, and then go get a good night's sleep, everybody. I love you. Thank you for everything. My name is Justin Nault, AMA number 42, blood pressure, salt, and sex. Thanks for being here, everybody. Bye.